Hello, welcome to the second MMA show presented by LineStar with Chris Guy here. We're going over UFC 276. I did it again, 276. And how are you doing, Chris?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. We're just really excited for this. That's all.
Yeah,
these matchups.
The first show went really good. This slate, this card looks pretty epic. I'm excited to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
So we'll just jump right into this first fight of the night with Jessica Clarke versus Julia Storlinko. Now, Jessica is the minus 160 favorite. Julia is plus 130. What are you thinking here? What do you like?
Well, this is Jessica Rose Clarke's fight to lose.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get her, she's a minus 155 favorite. If you want to get her, if you want to bet on her, I like this matchup for her. I'm looking at her on points plus 125. Mm-hmm. She has multiple ways to win the fight. She can win the fight at standing up. She's got some real good stand up, real sneaky good stand up, but she doesn't like to use it. She likes to take the fight to the ground. Julia Storlinko does have some good jiu-jitsu. She does have some submissions. She had 8 submissions. So I'm thinking that maybe she'll try to stand and bang a little bit more, maybe score a little more on the feet. But if I'm looking at this from an odds perspective, I'm definitely looking at probably this fight going the distance. So if I wanted to bet on, I don't know how Julia Storlinko is going to win the fight if she can't win it from like her back. Okay. That's the problem.
So being that, obviously it would probably be in Clarke's favor to kind of keep it standing up and bang. Now, odds do show that it's going to probably go the distance. Yeah. The over-unders 2.5 rounds at minus 235, pretty much telling us it's for sure probably going to a decision. Now, ownership for DFS is super light on this fight. Do you see some upside in either of the fighters?
I definitely see it in Jessica Rose Clarke. I think she has if you're going to have one person that's going to get a good lead and win the fight. If Storlinko is going to win, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really close. I think Jessica Rose Clarke can get out ahead on the striking. And she might be able to drag her to the ground and score some top control, some takedowns. Her stats as far as the striking stats go, let's pull this up real quick. She's about 4 significant strikes landed per minute, so per 15 minutes. And then you have Julia Storlinko, who's about 2.5. So you got the one striker who's going to be a lot more busy, a lot more active on the feet. So you get a lot more bang for your buck on Rose Clarke.
Yeah, and on that Storlinko number, whenever it's that low, you're really kind of looking at they want to get the fight to the ground. They don't want to stand and bang. So, and
her problem is she doesn't average half a takedown in her fights. So.
You see that a lot with jiu-jitsu practitioners. They're great on the ground, but they can't get it there.
Yes, that's exactly it. They call it jiu-jitsu takedowns.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an oxymoron, a sneaker that doesn't sneak. It's a grappler who can't get the fight to the ground. So then it's kind of like determined. I mean, but they like to be on their back. So, they like to pull guard. And the negative side to that is they spend a lot of time on their back, losing the round. So if they don't land the submission, it's all eggs in one basket, and then you lose the round.
Totally. So it could easily be a Clarke win there. So now let's move it on to, we have Macy Barber, who's a big-time favorite over Jessica Eye. We're looking at minus like 300 for Barber and 230 or plus 230 for Eye. The over-under on this for rounds is 2.5, so this is another one that's likely going the distance. What are you seeing here?
This is Macy Barber. This is her fight to win. We have a fight to lose, rather. We have a Jessica Eye who's kind of fallen off. She's lost 3 in a row, lost 4 out of her last 5.
Yeah.
Ever since that Shevchenko head kick, things haven't been the same for her.
I mean, that will change you.
That will always change you. That will definitely, especially the way she answered the chin phone.
Yeah.
I mean, the shin phone, she went down pretty hard. I think Macy Barber, definitely, she's going to outstrike her. I think she can out-grapple her in the clinch. Jessica Eye, rather. She's a throwback, old school type of fighter. She's like a Randy Couture, be in the clinch, kind of, dirty box you. Does she have long shot value at plus 235? Yeah, she can make this a dirty fight. She can make this a close, like, split decision type of fight. Macy Barber TKO at plus 450. That's a little rough. I don't think that she's going to get the finish. But she can definitely rack up points. She can also get the top control from the clinch, takedowns, land on top. She can outstrike her on the feet.
Yeah, that was kind of where I wanted to go next. Is Barber is one of the lowest owned 9K fighters for this weekend's card. So, when you're minus 300, you obviously have the ability to put up some points. Now, what do you think is as far as her upside, especially being able to mix some takedowns with some striking?
She averages 4.5 significant strikes per 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. That's landed, so it's not just on this. That's clean strikes. That actually
pretty solid.
So the way they do that is that people actually watch one fighter and they click how many. So those are actual shots that you're seeing landed. She averages almost 1.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. So she's going to get the top control. She's going to be able to strike on. She can win anywhere the fight goes, basically, and she can dominate the positions wherever it is.
So it could be a nice little kind of leverage spot going with Barber there, especially if one of the higher priced, high owned guys doesn't quite come through.
You have to mix in those low end people, those low end fighters.
Totally.
And then of those high end fighters too, you got to find the ones that those high end fighters don't always, hit those high marks.
Totally.
They're going to win the fight, but they're not going to give you those high numbers also. So.
And we're going to talk about another one right here in Andre Munoz versus Uriah Hall. Andre is a minus 320 favorite. Hall is plus 260. Now, this one has a very low over-under 1.5 rounds at minus 145. Good chance this one's done in the first. And what are you thinking here?
And that's because of Andre Munoz. He's a specialist. He's a jiu-jitsu specialist. He's an armbar. He has 4 armbar submissions to his name. I think he's won. Let me check real quick. I think he's won 3 in a row by armbar. Yeah, 3 in a row by armbar. He's 4-0 in the UFC. All of his arm bars came in the first round. He literally broke Jacare Souza, one of the best jiu-jitsu players ever be in MMA.
Speaking of breaking stuff, Uriah Hall can break legs just with his shin.
If he can survive, Andre Munoz has cardio issues. If Uriah Hall, he's no chump. This is a veteran that you can possibly be. The problem with Uriah Hall in his career has just been going for it, letting his hands go. I mean, if this guy lets his hands go, he can finish anybody in the division, beat Anderson Silva. That's the only issue he's got this mental block. If he can push back this and push past that and get this to this like halfway mark of this fight, the second half of the fight's going to be all him.
That's interesting, especially when you take into consideration that Andre Munoz is one of the highest owned fighters on the card, whereas Uriah Hall, it looks like he's getting very little ownership.
Yeah, if you need a long shot, you're looking at one of those lower tier guys that has a path to victory, and not only that, like a finish. I think the only way that he can win it is in a finish. I mean, if he's going to lose, he's going to have to come back from behind because he's going to be on his back more than likely, or up against the cage trying to fight in the clinch.
And that's kind of my next thing is, now you talked about Munoz being such a good jiu-jitsu player here. Now, how is Hall's takedown defense? Because it's going to need to probably be good if he's got a chance.
He's solid. He's a 65% takedown defense for his career. And trust me, a lot of people like to get Uriah Hall on the ground. That's the way to beat him, is to hold him down on the ground. But I think, it's going to be hard in the first round. But as the fight goes on, I'm telling you, Andre Munoz has some cardio issues. It gets harder and harder to get the fight to the ground. When you have to wrestle for that long, even if you're an Olympic wrestler or whatever you are, wrestling for long periods like that is very difficult. Wrestling rounds are not 5-minute rounds with striking in there. So he's going to gas. There's going to be a point that if Uriah Hall can get it to like the halfway mark, it's just going to be him standing. And Andre Munoz averages two significant strikes landed per 15 minutes. Per minute. Sorry. Yeah. And Uriah Hall's not much more. 3.5 is kind of like, it's about average.
Yeah, he can forget he has hands sometimes.
And kicks and the whole, he can forget he's in a fight. I mean, this guy shows up. It's like, I thought this was a continental breakfast.
Which is speaking as to why he's, very much the underdog.
Hit or miss, man. I have this thing. 2 fighters I'd never bet on is OSP, Oven St. Preux, and Uriah Hall, because you just don't know which one's going to show up.
Yeah.
He can come out here and spinning wheel kick Andre Munoz into tomorrow, or he can go out there, stand around, get taken down, and armbarred.
Yeah. And if you're in a big contest for 200K up top, it's probably worth taking some chances on Hall.
I mean, I think Hall, what's his odds?
He's plus 260.
Plus 260. I mean, if you're looking plus 260.
He's in your sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot. I love 250. Yeah. I love that plus 250, 240, 260 range.
And if he's going to win, it's not going to be at Valero.
No, it's not. He's not going to get robbed. He's not going to get a decision because there's no way he's going to win a decision because he's going to have to fight off his back. He's going to have to fight off the cage. So he's going to have to knock him out.
Yeah.
And he can do that. And you're probably looking at a late. So if you're looking even to push the odds even better in your favor, look at a round 3 TKO if you want to look for Uriah Hall.
Nice. All right. We'll bring it into the next fight now. I'm going to absolutely butcher this name. Dricus du Plessis versus Brad Tavares.
Yes.
Du Plessis is a minus 150. Brad is plus 120. Now the over-under for 2.5 rounds is minus 115. So this one could really go kind of either way, be done before or after that 2.5 round mark. What are you thinking here?
Dricus, so the thing about Dricus du Plessis, he's a massive star in South Africa. He comes from their promotions in South Africa. He's a huge name. He's kind of like what Khabib was to Russia.
Okay.
He's a huge guy here, but not at first he wasn't. He's always been a star in Russia. Well, this guy Dricus is the same thing. He's 16-2, all finishes, 7 KOs, 8 submissions. He's 2-0 in the UFC, and both finishes, one in the first round and his last one and the second one against a tough Trevin Giles.
He is plus 400 for a first round finish.
And he already has one in the UFC.
Yeah.
Brad Tavares, this is a guy who's been around, taken a lot of punishment. He fought Israel Adesanya at one point. He's fought everybody in division, was on the Ultimate Fighter. He's taken a lot of damage.
Who's who?
But he's only been finished. He's 19-6 career. He's only been finished by TKO, KO 3 times, and that's the only times he's been finished. He's been finished 3 times by KO and 3 times by decision. He's a very tough fighter to finish. So you kind of have like a clash of both worlds. You have a guy who finishes every single fight early around round 2, 1 and 2, and a guy who very rarely gets finished.
So it's funny you see that too. One of the notes I made for myself on this fight was the fact that Tavares, if it goes to points, he's plus 175, which means he has a decent chance if he gets it that far.
There's a lot of unknowns about Dricus du Plessis, and the biggest thing, easiest thing to overlook when it comes to these fights is the cardio. Does he have the cardio to go hard rounds? Brad Tavares is as veteran as you get. He's been in there against the best of the best. So does he? It's going to be a grinding fight against a guy like Brad Tavares, and he's finished. He's on a 3-fight, 4-fight, 5-fight. Dricus du Plessis finishes all his fights, so I mean, it's gonna. I like Tavares if he can get it later into the fight, grind him out. If that's what it's going to be, he's going to have to grind him out, get him to that 3rd round, and possibly if he wins, I don't see him finishing Dricus. It's going to win on a decision. That's his only really route.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what sports books are saying too. Now for this one with DFS, ownership is super heavy on du Plessis. Again, Tavares very low. Is it worth taking some shots?
I could, because there's a very Dricus, you have a guy that's heavily favored like that. What if he goes out there and lays an egg? Can't get their first round finish. He had his hands full against Trevin Giles in the last fight. Trevin Giles just let his guard down. That was a very highly contested fight. Trevin Giles isn't an absolute killer in this fight. I would say Brad Tavares is probably a better fighter than Trevin Giles is.
So it seems like there's definitely some worries about who du Plessis has faced.
Absolutely.
So we don't totally know who he is. Right now, the field sports books are all pretty much saying he's going to dominate, but we don't know who he is.
They're basing that on his overall record, and they're basing on his first 2 UFC fights against Marcus Perez, who's was a solid striker. These are middle tier guys. So you have Brad. He's going to be a slightly a step up. They're taking a good route with Dricus du Plessis. They're not throwing him there against a monster. But this is a guy who's hard to finish that can drag him into deep water. So if you're looking for maybe a sleeper right there, Brad Tavares. I mean, this he's tough. He's super tough.
I like it. Yeah, he's hard to win against, that's for sure. All right, now next fight, we have Daniel Cerrone versus Jim Miller. Miller is minus 120. Cerrone is plus 155. The line on this for 1.5 rounds is minus 140. So whenever you see 1.5, it's obviously they think this fight is likely going to be a finish. Just obviously they're saying probably between 1.5 and 2.5 here. So what are you thinking?
I think this is Jim Miller. I got this wrong on the weekly knockout. I got the odds mixed up. So I thought I was going this whole time thinking Jim Miller was plus money, plus 200. I was like, what? I was going to bet the whole house, I was gonna bet the Thunderdome, my car, everything on it. I couldn't believe it. So I got that one wrong. But Jim Miller, I mean, this is a guy who's coming off of 2 straight wins. This is a guy who's fought. I think this is going to be his 40-something time in the UFC. He has the record of most times fought in the UFC.
Yeah, some miles, that's for sure.
And the next guy below him is Donald Cerrone. So they're right neck and neck. But Donald Cerrone hasn't fought in a while. His fights have been falling through against I forget his name. He's supposed to fight in the last one.
The last two
Same
UFC
guy.
cards. Yeah, it's slipping my mind too. But Cerrone also has been in Thailand filming a movie while training for these.
That's never good.
These events.
That's never good. And he's really chinny now. I mean, the thing about Donald Cerrone is he can't take shots like he used to take shots. And this dude, Jim Miller, man, he's kind of like on a resurgence. He fought 2 killers. He fought Eric Gonzalez in his last 2 fights ago, and he fought this guy, Nicholas Mata, who was a killer on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, I thought Mata was going to cause him all sorts of problems. And my big thing about Miller was I thought his hand speed was down. I thought his striking was falling apart.
Yeah.
He's knocking these dudes out.
And you know what? We've seen over like the last couple years in the UFC, several older fighters kind of reinvent themselves, like Teixeira, for instance.
Yep.
And Miller seems to be doing the same thing. One interesting thing I saw was Jim Miller's plus 260 for a first round finish.
I like that. Plus 260 for a first round finish. I mean, Donald Cerrone, he's been getting finished left and right. I might be able to get up. I would take a fight with Donald Cerrone. I really would take a fight. I would like my chances.
Let's get it.
Hey,
Cerrone, we're calling you out.
Hey, I'll just take a $10,000 purse. I'll get fight a night, submission night. No, I love Donald Cerrone, but I mean, look at he lost his last fight to Alex Morono in the first round. Maybe not I'll give him credit, but then he lost to Khanier in the first round. He lost to Justin Gaethje in the first round.
No, he's losing to good fighters here, though. It's not
Anthony
Pettis.
On his downfall, he lost that. Nico Price fight was neck and neck, and Nico Price is a killer. So I will give Donald Cerrone that, because Nico Price is that dude howls at the moon. So that was a tough fight. They went neck and neck, but that was in 2020. We're going on 2 years since that fight. Alex Morono washed him in the first round.
Yeah,
so if you're looking at, I could see that
starched
happen. I could see a first round finish for Jim Miller on the feet, especially. I think Jim Miller might try to take it down and use his jiu-jitsu and his grappling from the top. If it stays standing, then Donald Cerrone, who knows? That head kick's still there. He's still got the straight hands. His whole problem has always been his head movement, his lack of it. He's got that Ned Stark head movement. It doesn't go anywhere, man. But he can't take shots. So if I was going to bet on Jim Miller, I would definitely bet like an early finish like that.
Nice.
If you want to get plus money, that's a good look. There's a lot of value on that.
I like it. All right. Now let's go into the next fight. We have Ian Gary at minus 170 versus Gabriel Greene plus 140. You and I were talking before we started here that this could be a little bit of a banger. The over-under 2.5 is minus 130 on the over side. What are you thinking
Minus
here?
130 to go over
Yes.
2.5 rounds? Because somebody's going to go to sleep. That makes sense. Listen, Ian Gary, I'm not quite sold on Ian Gary. He's kind of being made as the next kind of like Conor McGregor type of figure that's going to come in there. He's got very good hands. He's from Dublin, Ireland. 9-0, 6 finishes. I believe he's 2-0. Yeah, he's 2-0 in the UFC. A first-round finish at the buzzer against Jordan Williams, who's a tough guy. Beat my guy, the Brazilian Debo, Gregory Rodriguez. Darian Weeks, tough wrestler type of fighter. Showed that he could stand. He could defend takedowns. Went 3 hard rounds against him, so that's good. Ian Gary, I'm just not sold on him. He looks good. Everything looks clean. He needs everything to be clean. He needs a nice clean. He wants to dictate the fight. He needs a real controlled back and forth, real even tempered type of fight. If you can make it ugly, Gabriel Greene's the guy to make this stuff ugly. Can he survive in an ugly fight?
Greene is probably the second highest owned underdog on the slate. Yeah. And from what I'm taking that's how it should be.
He's gonna make this a dogfight. Now he's kill or be killed. So he's either gonna get knocked out early, or he's gonna hang around. Like his last fight, he was all sorts of trouble in the first round. Also, I don't know how he got out of the first round, came back in the second round, and got the TKO. Gabe Greene, he's
a dog.
He's a dog, and if he can get past that first round when you're fresh, when you're 100%, Ian Gary's got all the physical attributes, the long striking, the quick hands, all that. But does he got the dog in him? We don't know if he has the dog in him. I know Gabe Greene has the dog in him. So if he can drag that, this is definitely a sleeper. I picked Ian Gary to win the fight, but if the people know, they know Gabe Greene, he's definitely a live underdog, and if he's going to win this fight, it's going to be in a finish.
Yeah, I like it.
Both of them. I mean, what do you know? Have by any chance if it goes the distance?
I do not. Over though is 2.5 rounds at -135. So
so Ian Gary plus 200 to go the distance, plus 300 for Gabriel Greene. I mean, they could bang out. You know, they both got a lot of heart. They're both hard to. Obviously, we don't know about Ian Gary because he's never been finished. But Gabe Greene, it's going to be very hard to get him out of there. So. Long shot if you're looking at plus 200 Ian Gary kind of decision because he's going to outstrike him, at least for the most part. Let's see real quick. Their significant strikes. Actually, Gabe Greene, but his fights are shorter. So he's got 6.5, a little under 6.5 significant strikes landed per minute. And then you got Ian Gary, who's only fought twice, though, at 4.5. But gives you a little bit. That's probably more even. They're probably around 4 significant strikes landed per minute, which is pretty good clip. For each of them. And Gabe Greene can also get the fight to the ground. He can drag you to the mat and change the whole dynamic of the fight.
Yeah, and Gary's pretty much just going to try and stand and bang.
He's going to stand.
He's not going to try and go down.
Nope. He's going to sell out to stay on his feet, and he's got to keep Gabe Greene at a distance and fight at his own terms, engage on his own terms.
All right, now we'll bring it up to the next fight. We have Turner versus Riddell. Now, Turner's a -145 favorite. Riddell is plus 115. This could be a banger. Odds 2.5 rounds. Under is -170, so they're thinking there's going to be a finish here.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I honestly think, let's see here. I like the decision.
Okay.
I think these guys could go, let's see. Turner to go to distance is plus 150, and then you got plus 260. Can Riddell win this fight? He sure can. He's a very good wrestler striker. He's a lot like Volkanovski, a little bit Volkanovski. He's got that wrestler striking that I've talked about in the last one. Piston right hand. Wrestler strikers like to use their right hand, their power hand, whichever it is, to close distance. So they lead with it a lot, and they have very explosive hands.
And that can be dangerous too because it makes the other fighter worry about something other than just a takedown.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And when you have that right hand set up like that, you don't know if it's a right hand or a takedown, or if you're shooting into a takedown. Brad Riddell. The thing with Jalen Turner, why he's such a huge favorite, he's 155 pounds and he's long. I mean, this dude is huge. I mean, he's so tall. I don't know his exact, but he's over 6 feet tall. His physical attributes, fast, tall, long. I would rather fight a guy about 50 pounds heavier than me than a guy that's like has a lot of reach on me. It's very hard to get inside on him. Yeah,
I think in the newsletter you called him the Kevin Durant.
He's built like Kevin Durant for 155 pounds. He fought. Vicente Luque, he started at welterweight, so he dropped down to 155 pounds. I can't believe he can make 155 pounds. And he fought Vicente Luque, who's a KO specialist. He fought him tough until the second round. He got caught with some knees late in the second round and got dropped. But up until then, he was very competitive in that fight. So him at 155 is why is crazy that he can even make that. But he's 12-5. He's got a 100% finishing rate, 9 KOs, TKOs. And 3 submissions, and he's 4-0, I believe, since he's gone to 155. Yeah, and he's beat Euros Medic, who's a very good striker. He submitted him in the first round, and he beat Joshua Kulabau, who I was high on the last time I was on here. He did win, big sleeper. And Jamie Malarkey, he's either fighting. I think he's fighting next week. You'll see this guy's a tough dude, and he dogged him out in the second round. So Jalen Turner's a real underdog, real sleeper in the 155 division. I mean, to go all the way to the top. I mean, he's tough.
Yeah, so you like his chances to try for a belt. And I mean, it looks like Turner is going to be super high owned, so people definitely know about him. Riddell on the other side is going to be a lower owned. Like you said, you do like him.
He can win this fight. Brad Waddell can win this fight. He doesn't have. He's 10-2. He has no finish. He's 4-1 in the UFC, I believe. He has no finishes in the UFC. He has 5 for his career, so he's not going to finish Jalen Turner, but he can dog him out. So that's why that plus 275 for Riddell on points. Absolutely, if he can drag Jalen Turner to the ground. That's what you got to do. He's got to go in there. He's got to make it ugly. He's got to hold him against the cage, drag him down to the ground, clock some top control time, grind him out.
Getting close.
The thing about when you get that top control, those little punches add up real quick from the top.
Oh, yeah, they do. And you're getting control time. You probably got the takedown. Yeah, it can definitely add up to quick fantasy points.
If he can close the distance, you're going to see a couple times, even the main event. These are battles of the range. Who's going to dominate the range? It's very hard to get in on Jalen Turner, but if he can do it and he can get inside with the shot with the double leg, feint the double leg, come over the top with the right hand. Now he's mixing things up. Riddell's a very good fighter.
Yeah. If Turner starts thinking about either one a little bit too much, then Riddell definitely can get his point across.
Definite value on Riddell as a long shot right there.
I like it. All right, now we'll get to the main card. Bryan Barbarina versus Robbie Lawler. Barbarina's minus 110. Lawler is minus 120. Now, sportsbooks are saying that it's going to go the distance. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 180.
Yeah.
What are you thinking here?
We were talking about this before.
We were.
I mean, Robbie Lawler looked like a killer. Looked like he came back.
He did.
I remember,
he looked like a different Robbie.
DirecTV Robbie Lawler came back. It wasn't cable TV who has seen 5-6 fights in a row. He came out. He was a killer. Against Nick Diaz. Now, Nick Diaz looked a little inflated. He missed weight. He had to take it at middleweight. But the killer instinct was back. And Nick Diaz he was throwing. He was firing. He must have thrown 400 punches in 2 rounds.
Yeah.
So they were trading back and forth. But what I liked from Lawler was that killer instinct, that anger. He was fighting with that anger again. Another guy who could possibly get that second wind in his career.
Kind of resurgence there, yeah.
He's always fighting killers. His last fight, Nick Diaz, and it was Neil Magny, Colby Covington, Ben Askren, who he all but planted in the ground. And I don't know if you remember that fight.
Askren had a rough end to his career.
He got him in that bulldog choke, if you remember, at the very end. And Lawler didn't tap, but the ref thought he tapped.
Yeah.
And after he was putting a 10-8, maybe a 10-7 round on Ben Askren in the opening minutes. And then he lost to Rafael Dos Anjos, who's fighting in the main event last. He's a killer. Tyron Woodley. So he's fighting nothing but killers.
Yeah.
So I think at plus, if you're looking at Robbie Lawler, TKO plus 355. The thing about
heard it here first. Plus 350. I like it.
Bryan Barbarina, very tough to finish. Veteran type of dude. Just got himself a new contract. But the thing about him, he's kill or be killed. He's a firefighter in the pocket. He's going to stay in there. He's going to trade. He's going to extend combinations. They're both going to do that. And when you have that, when you stay and exchange in the pocket and you extend those combinations, you're open. You're leaving yourself open. So when you have guys like that who just change, they're leaving themselves open to be countered. So Bryan Barbarina has that killer be killed style. He's coming off of a real close win against Matt Brown, which was a great fight. He's fought everybody in the division. He fought Randy Brown, Vicente Luque, Leon Edwards. He fought to a decision. Colby Covington. He fought to a decision early in his career. So. Let's see, he's been finished 3 times, so he's 17-8, and he's been finished 3 times in his career. But Robbie Lawler, this guy's got stupid power. I mean, he's 29-15. He's got 21 TKO KOs on his record, and 1 lonely submission was probably started from getting dropped. So if I'm going long shot, I'm going with the TKO from Robbie Lawler. Now, if you go by points, Bryan Barbarina, he can win this fight. So if you're looking at a decision for Bryan Barbarina plus 245, that's how he's going to win. I don't think Barbarina can finish Lawler. Very few can. But Lawler can finish Barbarina. Okay. So if I'm going Barbarina, I'm looking at that decision at plus 245. He can definitely. He's got the skills. He's got no fear in there. He's going to trade. He's going to go right at Robbie Lawler. He's not going to be afraid of Robbie Lawler and shy back. There are significant strikes. Bryan Barbarina, 5.5 significant strikes landed per minute versus about more reserve. Robbie Lawler's about 3.7 significant strikes landed per minute. So he's a little more even-tempered as far as engage. The difference here is engaging the time in between engaging. That's the difference. And you guys, a guy like Barbarina doesn't necessarily throw longer combinations. He just gets busier in between those exchanges.
He just kind of keeps it going.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that data for Lawler is, prior to his reemergence.
Yeah.
In that last fight, we saw a little more output from him. Do you think that's going to continue?
I think so. I think this isn't really, I don't want to say a dangerous, because every fight is dangerous when you step in. I mean, it's easy for me to say sitting right here that a fight isn't dangerous, but I don't think he's really afraid to be hurt by Bryan Barberena. Now, Bryan Barberena definitely could hurt him, but you look at Robbie Lawler in his last fight, ended in the third round, 131 significant strikes landed. Nick Diaz had 150.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't you. I think back and think that he just washed Nick Diaz. He didn't just wash Nick Diaz. He was in that fight.
Diaz was totally in the fight. It was a fun one to watch.
Yeah,
I love to see those just barn burners. Both of them just going nuts back and forth.
So, and when you have a guy who strikes a little more often and is being the guy to lead the dance, Bryan Barberena could very well be the guy that's leading the dance. If Lawler falls back into old Robbie Lawler and is just kind of standing around and doing this deal, Bryan Barberena is going to steal that decision. And when you have close fights and the exchanges aren't very clean, you don't know who's really landing, you're going to lean towards the guy who looks like he's leading the dance.
Yeah, that's pushing the fight and
that's
moving forward.
Barberena.
Okay, interesting. Now let's go on to the next fight. We have Pedro Munoz versus Shane O'Malley. I know he's your boy. This looks like it could be a banger. Under 2.5 rounds is minus 110.
Yeah, well, minus 110. Yeah, I mean, I like those odds. I like those odds if you're going to bet on that because Sean O'Malley, he overwhelms early in fights because he's long and he's fast. But the thing with him, too, this is another – they got these long strikers versus these short strikers in this whole card, man.
Yep.
This is like these are nightmare matchups if you're the short guys. I've been in there.
This is an interesting stylistic matchup, I think.
You have Sean O'Malley, whose only loss came to Chito Vera. Chito Vera landed basically one strike in that whole fight, in the whole first round, and it was a calf kick. Yeah. And it literally it turned Sean O'Malley's leg into a noodle. He couldn't stand on it anymore. It was just flopping around. There's a nerve on the outside of your calf that when you get hit right there perfectly on it, it shuts it off. You can't feel it. I've had it happen several times. It's nasty. And so he couldn't stand on it, and he went down, and he got TKO'd in the first round. Pedro Munoz is a leg kick specialist. He's one of the best leg kickers in all of MMA. He's up there with the Jose Aldos, with the Justin Gaethjes, Pedro Munoz. This dude attacks the legs. If he can get in there, that's what he's got to do. He's got to kind of pick his openings, try to make Sean miss, and then counter those long strikes, come inside, get under the right hand, chop the leg up from its outside. So if he can land those leg kicks, he's got, he's going to win if he has to win, if he's going to win, he's going to win a decision. But Sean O'Malley on the early finish, this guy's he's a lot, man. He's a lot to handle. I mean, his range, it's
another wild dude.
He can just stay out there, and he's so good at staying on the outside, teep kicking you, side kicking you, using the long distance kicks. Because the thing about leg kicks, at least the high thigh leg kicks, those are short range kicks. You have to get inside. Teep kicks, side kicks, snap kicks, those kind of things you can do from a distance, and that's what he's really good at. But Sean O'Malley, this is other than Chito Vera, this is a real good step up for him. That could get. I mean, Munoz is fighting nothing but champions lately. I mean, he fought former champions. He fought Dominic Cruz in his last fight, and he fought Jose Aldo before that. These guys are two of the best champions we've ever had. So you could look at Pedro Munoz's record and easily just kind of brush him off because he's lost 4 out of his last 5 fights, but he's lost to Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo. He beat Jimmy Rivera, who's no joke. That guy won like 19 straight fights at one point. Frankie Edgar, he lost to, which was close. I actually had him winning that fight. He got robbed in that one, and he lost to Aljamain Sterling, but he went to decisions against him. It's very hard to finish this guy. He's never been finished, 19-7, and he's never been finished. So if you're looking at these odds, do you have odds for a decision on this one? Let me see. I can pull it up real quick.
I do not have them on my notes.
I think it's going to be hard to get Pedro Munoz out of there. I think he's going to hang around. So if you're looking at a long shot, O'Malley by points plus 175. Pedro Munoz, I don't see, if you think he can win, if you got that little feeling in your stomach, plus 500 for a decision, and that's really the only way he's gonna win the fight is on. He's not gonna finish. I say that, and then he chops his leg off, and then barring that, which hopefully that should be the game plan to go in there and to do exactly that. Pedro Munoz will likely win by a decision, and that's plus 500.
All right, now let's get to a real exciting matchup here with Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. Strickland is minus 120. Alex is minus 110. This fight could be an absolute banger, and I'm real excited to hear what you have to say about this one.
Yes. Have you seen? Did you see any of the little banter yesterday at the?
I heard about
conference?
it. I did not watch it, but I heard Strickland was on his A game,
howling at the moon. This dude is wild. I mean, he's talking. He's clowning Alex Pereira. He's clowning Israel Adesanya. If you guys don't know, Alex Pereira is a glory world champion kickboxer. He's as high level maybe ever that's been in the UFC. He's only 5-1 in MMA, but he's Brazilian. So the questions on him is, does he have a ground game? He's Brazilian. Of course, he's got a ground game. He fought Bruno Silva in his last fight, which was. A lot of people are underrating Bruno Silva. That guy is an absolute monster, especially on the mat. And Pereira showed a good getting back to his feet. Even when he got taken down, he showed that he could get back to his feet. But he's in Glory Kickboxing. He beat Israel Adesanya twice. The first time he beat Israel Adesanya, I think it was in 2018, 17, something like that. It was a KO. I mean, he knocked him clean out with a left hook. That's Alex Pereira's number one weapon, is that lead. It's so fundamentally sound. It's ridiculous. It's like the textbook left hook. He can use it going forward. He can use it as a check hook coming in. And the second time they fought, it was a close decision. I actually thought Adesanya won that fight. I thought he got robbed. So I think it's 1-1. But technically, it's 2-0. So the reason why this fight is important is because they're trying to get Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya set up.
And Strickland wants Adesanya.
And he's trying to talk his way into this. Now, is he going to talk his way? He's putting a lot of pressure on himself, which I don't like. This is a pretty much pick 'em fight. Can Sean Strickland win this fight? Absolutely. Alex Pereira, very hittable.
No, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that Strickland can stand up with Pereira?
Absolutely. So the difference between them is that Alex Pereira is going to use more tools, more weapons.
Yeah.
He's going to go in there. He's going to use his knees. He's going to use the tie clinch. The clinch is nasty. He's going to use his elbows. He's going to use his kicks. Sean Strickland's a boxer.
Yep.
And almost strictly just a boxer.
Yep.
And but pay attention. Watch this guy fight, man. He likes to use his hands and his shoulder rolls, and he'll hold his hands out in front of him, and what that allows him to do is deflect shots before it gets in, and it'll look like he's getting hit. He's really not getting hit. He likes
just
to
kind of
roll
glancing
the shots,
blows,
and he pitter pats with his shoulder punches. He's never out of position.
Yeah.
He's rolling and he's countering every time, and he stays moving forward. He's wild. He'll talk ish to you the whole time to you, and that's getting in your mind because on top of talking crap to you at the press conference, now he's talking crap to you inside the ring, and you're wondering like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? On top of having to fight him, and so I think this is this is a great matchup. I mean, the winner of this is definitely going to fight for the title next. I definitely see a lot of value. I don't think that this. I think I picked a Alex Pereira finish. I might have picked a finish, but I'm going back. I think that these guys are going to bang. It's only if this was a 5-round fight, I might say that it would be a late finish for Pereira, but I think that this can go to decision. Alex Pereira by points plus 425. It's very hard. I mean, you got a guy in Sean Strickland who is 12-3 in the UFC and is 25-3 overall. He's 12-3 in the UFC, and he's fought. And those losses were to Elizeu dos Santos, who's a killer. Trust me on that one. Kamaru Usman and Santiago Ponzinibbio, who throws nothing but bombs. And he's beaten a who's who. He beat Jocko, beat Uriah Hall, beat Jack Hermanson. So this guy's definitely, I think, if one was to get the finish, I could more see Pereira being the guy who's going to get the finish. I think Sean Strickland, if he wins, I think he's going to stay busy. He's going to be that busier fighter that's going to touch him, have some good moments where he kind of Pereira looks rock, because Pereira, I'm telling you, he's very upright, very Muay Thai, very Sagat street fighter type thing, where he takes a lot of shots. So I'm looking at, if I'm trying to play that, I'm looking at, Sean Strickland by points is also plus 250. So Pereira by points is plus 425 because he's such a murderer.
Now, you did talk about how the question with Alex is we don't really know about his ground game. Do you think Strickland can go the takedown route? I know he has a little bit in the past.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking that why I've been thinking about this fight is like a great curveball would be if he came out and tried to get this fight to the ground. And I was also thinking the same thing, looking ahead, that Israel Adesanya, what if he came out and shot a double leg on Alex Pereira and added some wrinkles to his game? You know, the surprise factor of that. I definitely think he could take that route. He's going to have to time up. He's not a guy that's going to come in there, change levels, and shoot a double on you, snatch up a single, run the corner, and take you down or anything like that.
He's not the wrestler,
but he can get you up against the cage and you can score some trips. He averages over a takedown per 15 minutes. So I mean, it's definitely in there. I would definitely not even trying to get the takedown, just holding him up against the cage and grinding him, hitting him with some dirty Randy Couture boxing in there. That definitely should be in the game plan. If he's gonna, but he's a hard-headed dude. He's gonna go out there and try to throw hands.
He is. I'm super excited.
He's not
gonna
take the path of least
Honestly,
resistance.
I'm more excited about that fight than the headline main event.
It should be a main event.
It should be a main event. And speaking about, we'll go into the co-main, the trilogy. Max Holloway at plus 160 versus Alexander Volkanovski at minus 200. Now, this is going to be a banger, part 3.
So I think this should be a best of 7 series. I think they should make this the first ever.
UFC wants this.
You remember they had the BMF belt for Diaz and Masvidal?
Too.
They should have their own belt. They should have a 7. This should be like the first, series, 7-fight series. I mean, because every single one of these fights is going to be like split decision, highly contested. Who won it? I thought Max Holloway won the second fight. I gave him the first 3 rounds. That third round is the decisive round. Is how did you score that round?
Now, after that third round, Volkanovski has looked like a different fighter. He has been a dog since then.
And what's surprising about that is that Max Holloway is usually the guy who's stronger as the fight went on, and he was actually slowed down as the fight went on in that second one. And then since that moment, like you said, he's gone on a killing spree. I mean, he went in. Brian Ortega, one of the greatest, if not definitely the greatest 145 title
I want to
fight
see
I've
that
seen.
Fight again too.
100%. I thought we should have seen that, if anything, over a Korean Zombie fight.
Oh, for sure.
For Volkanovski.
For sure.
If anything. I thought Yair Rodriguez should have gotten that fight.
Yeah.
Nobody was mentioning him. And at most, I said, give me an Ortega rematch. I would take that.
I want to see Ortega in that fight again.
The greatest round I've ever seen, round 3 of that fight, is ridiculous. But
it was
that
insane.
moment, and even that moment, from that moment on, I mean, he's just turned into he flipped the switch, and now he's a killer. Here's what has to happen for this fight. Somebody has to put a stamp on this one. Somebody has to try to get a finish. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because they're so closely, they're so good. These are the 2 best guys.
One, Holloway doesn't really knock guys out. You know, he doesn't finish fights. Volkanovski, we have seen over those last couple fights that like his will to keep fighting and going, I don't think is going to allow that to happen.
And he got rocked in the second fight. Early in that fight, he got dropped with an uppercut, I believe, and then he got rocked in the second round, just kind of a little wobbled, and he came back from that, and really, and then the first fight, the second half of the fight, I mean, he had to really get. He's a very good point fighter. Yeah. He can stay out there. Max Holloway is going to have to be in the pocket and just exchanging, where he's going to have to be vulnerable. The thing where Max, his strength is also his weakness. He's very hittable because he extends combinations. He's throwing killer instinct, like 15 punch combos in the pocket. So that's a lot of time that you're being open. Now he's plus 160. I think.
Plus 160, and he's plus 275 on points.
That's the only way he's going to win. Yeah. So plus 275, plus 160 to win the fight. He can absolutely win the fight. Now he'll be he averages over 7.5, I think 7.5 significant strikes, and then Volkanovski's like 6 something. So I mean they're both right around there. But I think Max, if he can at least stay the busier fighter. You're looking at, when you're going to the judges like that, again, like we talked about earlier, the guy who looks like he's leading the dance a little more often is going to get those closer rounds.
Yeah.
So I think that, for him to win, it's going to be a decision. And that's that plus money right there, plus two, that's a very good value on Max Holloway. It's Max Holloway. Plus money on Max Holloway for anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's great, man. I do think if there's going to be a finish in this fight, it's going to be Volkanovski.
I think so too. And that's hard to say because I don't remember the last time. I know Dustin Poirier finished, little known fact, Dustin Poirier finished Max Holloway back in the day. I think he got him in a Darce choke. That might be, let's check real quick, that might be the last time somebody finished Max Holloway. But I think so too. I think he's shown in the Yair Rodriguez fight, in his last fight, he took a lot of damage in that fight. He got off to a good start, and then Yair started landing some bombs. He did. And so once again, you got a guy like Max who's just kill or be killed, going to be there in the pocket, there to be hit. Sometimes he has real slick boxing like we saw with Kattar. Other times he's just straight forward, straight backwards, swing, swing, swing. And so, yeah, he hasn't been finished since Dustin Poirier.
Now, both of these fighters are going to be super high owned in DFS. Obviously, for good reason. Holloway looks like he's going to be the highest owned underdog. Volkanovski is going to be one of the highest owned favorites. Do you see any way of fading this fight?
From a whole betting standpoint, I would stay away from this fight. This is just a kind of an
wouldn't bet it. Now, what about DFS though?
I would tell. What do we have? Max is like, I think he's low range. He's like
he's like 7,200 or something. Volk 9.
That's value for days right there. If you're looking at that lower tier,
Volk is like 9K.
Because and you have this situation for both of them. Win or lose for both of them, they're going to put up fantasy numbers. Yeah. Like I think I said, like these guys are triple doubles. Just stepping on the court.
I would be shocked to not see 100 points from whoever.
Both of them. Yeah. And I think both of them. I think they'll both trade. They'll both put land their shots. So if you're looking lower tier, Max Holloway at lower tier in the sevens, 7,500 for fantasy. There's a ton of value in that, even if he loses the fight, because I think he's going to lose. If he loses it, I think it's going to be a decision. Yeah,
for sure. All right, now let's get to the main event. We have Israel Adesanya versus Jared Khanier. What are you thinking here?
This is Izzy. This is Israel.
A long day for Jared.
It's gonna be. Listen, I try to find like how can he win this fight? Is there any value on him? I hate fading people completely, and just completely writing him off. But I mean, every physical attribute, the whole styles. If you go back to Jared Cannanier's last fight, he fought Brunson. That was a rough first round for him. He's lucky that Brunson, he got the mount. He had him in all sorts of problems at the end of that first round. If that exchange had happened with maybe like 10, 15 seconds more left in the round, he would have been finished in the first round, Jared Cannanier. He also lost fairly recently to Robert Whittaker. He had his moment. Yeah, he lost 3 fights ago. So he beat Kelvin Gastelum and Derek Brunson. Very good wins. Very good wins. But before that, he lost to Robert Whittaker. He pretty much got handled. But late in that fight, he landed something that almost changed everything. And late in that fight, so he's got the power. Yeah. He can hang around. He's going to have trouble closing the distance.
He is coming down too in weight.
And this is a guy who started at heavyweight. He started his career in heavyweight. He hasn't been finished at so he went from heavyweight, then he went down to light heavyweight, and then now he's down to 185 pounds, which is crazy. And since he's come to 185, he's been an absolute killer. So he's been 5-1. Since he's come to, he has wins over Anderson Silva, David Branch, all you old school heads. David Branch was a tough dude. Jack Hermanson, another great win. Kelvin Gastelum's always a great win. Yep. And he handled it. He was pretty much in control of that fight the whole time. And I believe that was a 5-round fight. That was the main event. So Jared Cannanier, it's just the physical attributes are going to be very hard for him. I mean, he's going to chop up. I think he's going to come in there with the Paulo Costa game plan. He's going to chop. He's going to work from the ground up. He's going to chop that leg, put that jab out in his face, switch stances, do the same thing, and it's just going to be very hard for Jared Cannanier to win that fight. Now, do you have the odds on the finishes and the?
No, I mean over it's 4.5 rounds for -115. I would say it's probably going to points.
Yeah, I would bet points. I would say there would probably be some long shot value on an Adesanya finish, maybe 4th round finish, maybe somewhere around there. You have round 4 Israel Adesanya by TKO via. Oh, these are specific. Let's get out of here. You could bet. Look at this, man. You could bet on like how he wins it by knees, by elbows.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy.
It's getting way too specific.
Yeah, way too hard to do that.
Now, as far as DFS, Adesanya doesn't always have the highest output. What are you thinking? Do you think he is somebody you gotta have, or?
I would, of all those top tier guys, that's the guy I would stay away from, because exactly what you say, because there's times where he comes out and he just wants to win the fight and get out of there, look good doing it.
He's smart with how he fights.
And there's no problem with that.
No. I mean,
that's like
you got to win the fight. You got to win the fight.
The point is to hit and not be hit, and that's what he does very well. But he's not going to put himself out there to get the finish at all times. So the decision, and then that's definitely out there. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking at him from a stat standpoint, I don't think he's going to wow you with the numbers. I think he's only hit 100 significant strikes in a 5-round fight one time, and he's fought 5. And oh yeah, that's true. And he only did that. That was his very first 5-round main event against Brad Tavares. That was the only time he hit 100 significant strikes in a fight that went the full 5 rounds. So like you said, he's going to hit low numbers. Probably maybe be around that 75 range, 80 range. You can easily make that up somewhere else on the card.
Yeah, and I think that's right about where his line is on Prize Picks and Underdog, some of those other pick sites.
Yeah.
So
because he's under 4 significant strikes. He's just over 3.5 significant strikes, and that's pretty much exactly where Jared Cannanier is. So they're both going to have the same pace.
Yeah.
It's just, could Cannanier land a big bomb? He could, but I think we're going to see Piera versus Adesanya.
Yeah, well, that would be a good one, and that would be a real fun next headliner to talk about. But so that will do it today. UFC 276. Make sure you check out LineStar app. We have all you need for stats and everything at the very cheap price of $19.99. You can also check out the weekly knockout by
subscribe.
Yes, subscribe. This guy is part comedian, part writer, part MMA practitioner, and
all of it. Jack of all trades.
He's bringing all the laughs on it. Anyways, thank you guys. Hopefully you can join us again next time for the next pay-per-view. And that's all I got for you.
Go put your picks on wax.
Don't
hit me up on Twitter talking about my picks and you don't put yours on wax. Put them on wax.
Yep. All right, guys. Have a good one. Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Bye.